A gentle slope blanketed the edge of the world that stretched towards the sea in a panorama of layered green, gold, and blue. A path ran tightly across its threshold, quietly reminding me that despite its perilous appearance, the void below was no immediate threat. Cocooned by its distance, gravity invited me down the hill slope and close to the sea. The edge divided expanse of grass and sea in uneasy juxtaposition, a rigid boundary between finite and infinite which seemed to shrink the once comfortable expanse beneath my feet. The horizontal of the edge lay almost at eye level now, and seemed to hint at a kind of mutual understanding, yet it told nothing of its secrets in return. I wondered if the edge's mysteries might resolve under closer interrogation, so I edged closer. The sea's volume expanded and replaced the dwindling safety of the field I'd left behind, and the ribbon of path expressed feeble assurances of security from the ruthless void below. Stepping onto the path, the sea expanded further, and finally divulged its embrace with the rock below. Somehow, cliffs ascended from below the edge's depths, in tangled fringes which hinted of the edge's deception. Their arrangement unleashed the edge from its linear confines, and disclosed more distance than my apparent proximity had suggested. All was not as it seemed, and I'd been tricked. Edging towards the path's furthest boundary revealed the secrets that had been lying in wait all along. A path seemed suspended in the vacuum the edge's illusion had implied, and a gentle slope stretched down to an identical path to the one I'd just come from. The cliffs had ascended, rocks had multiplied, and the sea had expanded even further below. A new edge materialized, just as silent as before, and its mystery seemed even more apparent. The strength of the land grew as the sea's expanse weakened. An infinite presence contained as rocks assembled into terraces which the cliffs spread their roots into. An alliance seemed to establish itself between the cliffs and I, as their stoic forms assured me of their stability, yet I knew their power was impartial, and I was no more a friend or foe than the sea. I looked to the rocks which stretched towards me in tangible proximity, arrangements which merged with shingles, slope, and cliff, and with relief I noticed their connection to the land I was standing on. This discovery felt eternal. I made my way back up to the surface through hills of spun gold to rejoin the path. It skirted along the edge, tranquil and self-assured as the sea danced back and forth with reassuring monotony. I saw the path ahead dip down into the emerald folds of the surface and into the cliff's depths. The path led down into a fortress whose generous walls shared their security with me. The path took a bend, and I found myself at the edge of a shaft 40 foot wide, the walls comprised of layers of varying shades of sand and burnished metal, and at its base the waves littered the interior of an otherwise perfect circle. I traced the path's curve for a few brief seconds before it veered off back into the shaft's perimeter and behind the walls of the fortress. Mystery descended once again. This time a shaft of light was visible at its centre, and as I descended it expanded to frame a monument, a delicately formed piece of the cliff seemingly shrunk down in a gentle display of affection. The midday sun drenched the monument in cool light as I orbited around it, examining its form. As I rounded its corner, a path appeared in an invitation for continued exploration. Beneath the cliffs, rock rises and falls to the timeless tick of a distant clock, echoes that fossilize movement from eons past. The world above hides its secrets in these shapes. Rippling and twisting, they hint at their culminating masterpiece that lies above. As I trace the edge of this mystical world, I wonder their silent intention, and why must they hide? The steps rose once more, and my journey continued. As before, the path split, but at this junction an impossible break in the cliff edge lay ahead, and the top of a rock was visible at its base, which seemed to merge with the path at its lowest boundary. I followed the path as it descended. and as the stretch of path ahead diminished, the rock grew from the mysterious depths of the void ahead, framed by the opening in the cliff. An opening in the channel I was walking down appeared, leading away from the one I was walking towards, so I took one last glimpse of the view and followed this new one. Afternoon light dimmed with the elongation of sheer rock face, guiding the effortless curve of the path as it carved through ancient rock. Suddenly another opening appeared to my right, and through it the monument had grown in height, seemingly rotated by a few degrees. I continued down the path, and the monument danced and span as my journey from opening to opening bewitched its usually melancholic structure. The price I'd paid to see the dancing of the rocks became clear on my ascent back towards the surface. As the afternoon sun washed the cliff top with yellow and gold, the pull of gravity seemed to loom heavier upon my limbs and vision.
The existence of the Earth and the properties that made it possible for biological life to develop depend on a very fine balance between the so-called constants of nature. If they were more than slightly different, either planets like the Earth would not occur, or the chemical processes necessary for life would not take place. One might take this as evidence for a divine creator, but an alternative explanation is what is known as the multiverse. The idea is that there are many possible universes. Only in the small number of universes that are suitable will intelligent beings develop and be able to ask the question, why is the universe so carefully designed? Time was separate from space and ran from the infinite past to the infinite future. Asking for a time before the beginning would be like asking for a point south of the South Pole. One can't help asking, why are you so obsessed with God?
The path veered right, a lazy curve which gestured towards the direction I knew the beach would lie. I once again followed the path through the rock, with steeper steps than any of the ones before. The sun was now setting, and my surroundings had blurred, but an amber glow began to creep around at the limits of my vision towards where the steps must eventually give in to the beach. Finally, the world below the surface began to appear through the doorway at the end of the channel, and the slice of watercolour sky that stretched above it too. The final step flooded the world in a flash of orange light.